we can let people join us, but we'll get started. I'm Rosie Norman, Director of Graduate Admissions and Financial Aid here at BU Wheelock, and we're happy to have you all here for our AI and Education information session. I will hand it over to TJ, who's going to run the show for most of this evening.
Yes, hello, welcome everyone. My name is TJ McKenna. I am the program director for the new AI in Education EDM program. And so the overall goal for today is to kind of paint the picture of what is this program and why now. Ultimately, I'm excited because just you being here tells me a little something about you that you're not sitting on the sidelines waiting for somebody else to figure out this AI and education thing. And I think one of the big compelling things that does feel like a lot of work is we're the generation that figures out what AI and education looks like. And so I think this what you'll see today is this program is really focused to do that work, but in a very different way than a lot of the other kind of general degrees in AI are built. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. If there are any questions or things that pop up as we're going, feel free to drop them right in the chat and I'll make sure I get back to them. Um, but our agenda today is to think about why AI in education and do a little bit of an overview. But more importantly, I know, a lot of these are, you're like, that could have been a website or that could have been an email. And so I want to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and talk about what you'll be able to do when you're done with this. And so feel free to drop things in the chat. If you have questions that come up, I'll give an overview, go through the learning outcomes and the curriculum, and even a very timely example that just happened, and then talk about the capstone, who should apply, and then we'll pivot to answering any questions. And so, why AI in education? Um, the honest truth is that like it is already in classrooms, and I know a lot of academics. I was just last month in Paris at an AI conference, and it was really interesting hearing kind of how all the different countries are approaching this, and also exciting to hear that we're kind of on the leading edge of this as we're thinking about like it's in your classrooms, it's in your students' pockets on apps. And it's truly reshaping what leadership is doing at a building and district level. And right now, I think where we're all kind of stuck is in this place where the technology is moving so fast, but there's a gap in what we know about kind of what it does to learning, to student learning. And so the biggest thing that I am always asset framed, look for opportunities, and I think the biggest piece is that gap is your opportunity. I also lead the Center for STEM Professional Learning at Scale. We're in over 29 different states across the country, and the biggest thing I get asked for is, do you have people that have the expertise, the judgment, and not just kind of the surface level familiarity with AI, but that can like help us make decisions, help us think about how to use these things in our schools, shape policy, help parents understand these things. And so the biggest piece is that, it's not a fear, there are a lot of concerns around AI, but it's more about the possibility. Like when we use AI thoughtfully, truly grounded in what we know about learning, it can be an incredible force for good in education. It can really free up a lot of your time, deepen your students' thinking, make your feedback more targeted, open doors for learners that have been underserved. And so when it comes to one of the things that they were talking about in Paris is the people building these AI frontier models, all of these big open AI and Anthropic and Gemini and Microsoft, all the whole crew, they flat out said at the conference, like, we're computer scientists. We don't know how to apply these things into education. And so we need programs like this to build those bridges, so where we can make sure that we're speaking the same language, but we're also the ones at the table saying, this tool isn't going to help, and we need something that does this rather than that. And so the program overview. So it's a 30 credit flexible online curriculum, and it is designed 100% online. And I think you all know it kicks off in the fall. And so the biggest piece, I being an educator myself, I taught full time through my master's and my PhD program. I would not advise doing both. It was exhausting, but I didn't have a lot of money, and so I needed to take the time that I had to do what I could. And so I have taken a lot of the things that I learned through an online program to make sure that this one is built to help you like every day of the way. And so the way that we've developed course modules, the way that we've set up assignments, they're all set up to match your role. So if you're a teacher, if you're a principal, if you're thinking about becoming an educator, if you're an after school program coordinator, the assignments are all set up not to be something you turn in, you get a grade on, and then it lives in a Google Drive somewhere. That doesn't help anybody. Really what you want are lessons, examples, rubrics, stakeholder maps, like all of those resources that can bring this program to life. And my ultimate goal is that you not only become a leader in your position, whether that's a classroom leader or an administrator, but you have the resources that when people say like, "Oh, you're doing that program." What are you learning? You can point to lesson plans. You can point to resources that you've generated, all of those pieces. I see the comment in the chat. Will there be opportunities to meet in person or come together as a group? There certainly will be. It won't be required because I think we are going to be having kind of people both across the country and internationally. But we will definitely set up some events where we can all come together. And I think there's a uh, I think I get 5 emails a day of people asking me to present at conferences. And so I think we also will have, as a cohort, a lot of experiences and opportunities to share out what we've learned and what we're doing within the program. And so I can see both opportunities to come together in Boston. We have an incredible amount of like computing resource in Boston. So there's definitely, if you haven't seen the new Center for Data Science building, or students call it the Jenga building, it is beautiful, and we could definitely meet in there and gather up. But I mean, it wouldn't hurt to all go to the Paris conference and present together there too. So just putting that out there. So in terms of um, the learning outcomes, the biggest piece is, you'll really be learning how to design AI supported instruction that's grounded in real learning science. And so not the gimmicks, not the we're going to take a class on prompt engineering, or we're going to think about how to do this more transactional task, but really principled design that works regardless of which platform happens to be trending in the moment. And so we are completely tool agnostic. We are platform agnostic. You can use whatever version you're the most comfortable with. We also have a version of we call Terrier GPT. So Terriers is our BU piece, and so you'll have access to a bunch of free tools, as well as some additional tools that we've built and that I built and other faculty have built. You'll develop the skills to lead responsible AI adoption at the school and district level. So that means, every school, every district, every university, um, and and honestly, most organizations right now are scrambling. If you follow the kind of the news in AI and education, a lot of districts or even countries, like South Korea was one of the first to adopt across the country. They then reversed course and said, never mind, we're not adopting. And so a lot of these things are happening both in companies and in school districts. And so you're after going through this program going to be the person with that expertise to say this tool is going to help us and belongs in a classroom, and this one does not. And so, in that matter, you become indispensable. You move into leadership roles. You get to present at conferences, like I said, sit on different task forces. and ultimately shape the direction of your organization, your district, your school, whatever it may be. Evaluate AI use and implementation with data. We are inundated with this new tool is going to solve everything. This, I just got a message yesterday. Never grade again. We've developed a tool that is going to grade all of your student essays. And immediately I'm like, please no, please, that is not what we're looking for. Being able to evaluate some of those tools and even there's a research component. And while, you are interested in going into doing more practitioner research or maybe even progressing in your career into a doctoral program, we'll dig into the growing research base, and we're also thinking about how to do research and support research with AI. And then throughout, we will be thinking about ethics. And so privacy, fairness, accessibility, thinking about design challenges relating to these, and then learning how to build systems that are genuinely equitable, that open the doors for more students and make education more human, not less. I see the chat about the certificate program. That is 100% the goal of the certificate program. If you want to try it out and get started with the certificate program, you can move into the master's program, and there would really be no no big jump there. You'll be able to move forward. All right, I see that one. Oh, we'll come back to that. And so I want to give you an example. And so if any, I'm sure everybody knows the Khan Academy. And if you've seen as of lately, it's Conmigo is done. And so there are these very funny posts online now of people writing an obituary for Conmigo, which was supposed to change everything. It was a TED Stage talk. There were hundreds of millions in subsidies. Microsoft sponsored the licenses for teachers in 49 different countries. And the creator called it, and this is the quote, probably the biggest positive transformation that education has ever seen. And then last week, that same person called it a non-event and closed it. And so this was one of those things where it's like it had the hype, it had all the money behind it, but this tool was built without a theory of learning. It was really focused on being transactional, so task completion, move students through content, and then when the usage didn't meet expectations, they didn't focus on the students and why the students weren't engaging with the content. They made the chatbot more aggressive, and so the chatbot would actually contact you before you even asked a question. It would like try to get you to engage with it. And so, that's ultimately a failure in design. And it was predictable if you knew kind of the things that you would learn in this program. And so, the graduates of this degree program won't make the same mistakes, but will also be able to say, I don't know, this one seems like a lot of hype. And not just from like a vibe perspective, but being able to say exactly why at an architectural level. What is the theory of engagement? What is the theory of learning? What is this based on? Is it inviting students' thinking? Is it replacing the thinking? And then what evidence do they have? Because they had a ton of evidence, but it was done with research designed to confirm its value, and not really be honest about what the system itself did. And so, every district is probably already running into these things, trying to be sold a new tool or a new option. And ultimately, the we don't need more people who can use the tools. We need people that can say critically and with evidence why this either belongs or doesn't belong in a classroom. So the curriculum's organized around three pillars, and I won't read through all of these, but the first is human-centered AI foundations. So really digging into like the foundations course is what is this? What is AI? And how does this connect with what we know about learning? And so like allowing you to merge and have those meaningful conversations about that. Digging into a little bit like what are these systems? How are they built? But you do not need a coding background. You do not need to be a computer scientist. You do not need to be building your own tools. The entire program is assuming zero coding knowledge, zero computer science background. But we do want to give you enough resources to be able to understand why this model is different from OpenClaw, and that's different from this version or that version, and what Claude code is and different from all of those pieces. And the other piece, because it's an online program, we're able to make it more adaptable. And so if you're thinking, well, maybe I do down the road want to build some of these ed tech tools, you can go because we have resources and we have other through our data science program, we have access to a tech stack and other options if that's something you're interested in, but you do not need that coming in. Evidence that empowers is this is like really where you learn to cut through the noise. And so, like, what is the evidence that something's working? And how do I know? How do I use evidence to advocate for what my students need? How do I build dashboards that allow me to see kind of student thinking? And so the entire program is set to model these things through how we're teaching. And so I was just meeting with somebody today, and I'm really excited about our project-based learning modules, really thinking about how can you take UDL, project-based learning, and AI and merge those into something that's like really engaging and adaptive. And then the third pillar is thinking about that systems change and leadership, both from a classroom level and a school-wide level and a district level, to think about how do we talk about AI adoption across a number of different contexts. How do we think about policy? And ultimately, this pillar is really about career advancement. So like learning to have those bigger conversations. The skills that get you promoted, that get you hired into roles that probably don't exist right now. But that districts are really talking about the kind of people that they need to be able to move us forward. And then our capstone and embedded experiences. The capstone project is at the end of all of these pieces, you really bringing together all of the learning that you've done. And this is something that I'm really excited about, that the assignments you are doing throughout the course, and even if you were starting the certificate program, you're able to put together those assignments into kind of a broader portfolio. And so we have a really interesting online portfolio program so that by the end of this, your capstone is kind of putting a big bow on all of the assignments you've been doing throughout, that are really set up for you and your role and in your school and involve your students. And so the capstone isn't a big PowerPoint at the end or writing a long paper. But you always could do a thesis if it was something that you were into, but the goal is to have all of the assignments be things, tangible things that you can use right away. And then in terms of the real world experience, there isn't a practicum component in that we're not placing you in a school. We're understanding that people might be coming from community organizations, pre-K-12 districts, maybe education companies or different universities. So like whatever you are doing in terms of your role, that is going to be kind of your test case. And so you're able to use things that you're working on to kind of make it your own. Who should apply? The a lot I feel like I get asked a lot, is this program for me? If you're in education, it's a program for you. And so the biggest piece is that, whether you're pre-K-12, you're higher ed faculty that's thinking about preparing the next generation of educators, administrators. My center works a lot directly with principals and ed leaders, and a lot of those folks are asking, like, I need this knowledge, and I can't just get it from asking ChatGPT or going on Wikipedia. Like we really need a cohort of people working together. Researchers, either currently or working to be a researcher, policy experts, or ed tech professionals. And so, population, speaking my language with the productive struggle. And so I love that comment. The I actually do both elementary and secondary science methods, and my elementary group, we had a number of students come from Brazil, and we used AI with a group of first and second graders to help the students that were speaking Portuguese that we didn't have anybody to be able to translate. we used develop AI systems to be able to really shift that in ways that were pretty incredible. And so I love the comment, and not losing that productive struggle is so big. So featured faculty, it is a growing list, but I will highlight that my work is my research is in scale, and so I'm really thinking about how do we build systems and tools that can scale. And so right now I have a science coaching platform that has really taken off. It's in over 13 different states. It is not a generative AI chatbot. It is a kind of different system. And so my biggest piece is that I stay connected to classrooms. I teach in schools, I work in schools. And so the goal here is to really empower and change the experiences for students. Naomi Caselli is the director of BU's AI and Education Initiative and the BU Deaf Center. And so Naomi's using AI to think about language acquisition and to do a lot of modeling. I even saw she was leading a massive session today, and I saw our dean, Penny, was actually speaking or was doing sign language as she was speaking, and she does not know American Sign Language, which the system that Naomi had set up was allowing her to do that on the screen. Michael Allen Chang is the assistant director at the Earl Center and a faculty fellow for computer and data sciences. He has a strong background in computer science and does a lot of co-design work, working directly with K-12 students and undergrads. And then Ola has started this huge background in literacy education, but also has started this program called Eval, which is working with companies to help them learn how to evaluate some of the AI systems that they have. And so, and this is just faculty that are at BU Wheelock that overlap in this program and are teaching in this program. We also have a number of folks who have written books on AI in education that are working on course development, and colleagues across the entire university that are thinking about these topics as well that will also kind of drop in and help with us. I'll turn it back to Rosie to talk about some of the admission and cost elements.
Sure. So, our application is open and available for you now. The program is beginning this fall in September. And I will post in the chat a link to all of our application requirements and to the application form itself. But it is an online form. And within that, you will supply your bachelor's degree unofficial transcript, resume, essay, letters of recommendation, all of those required elements. Once your application is complete, we have rolling admissions, so you will go right for review and hear back um, very, very quickly as we can. And we do have a priority deadline of May 1. We will still accept applications after that, but if you are ready to go, that's the date we're striving for. And as for cost, this program has a set tuition cost for the entirety of the program. So, unlike some of our other degree programs where tuition can change year to year, this is a $30,000 program in its entirety. Um, and it's 1,000 per credit. So if you do pursue the certificate, which is 16 credits, and the full master's is 30 credits. And I will post that here. And I think that's it in that realm, but we can obviously answer questions. And I will also post in the chat a link to our application fee waiver form, which you can use to waive the fee for your application.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll say that you know, this in terms of the cost for the program is much below the average, but one of the things that I was really excited to hear is that the reason for this is not because the program is discounted. It really reflects the overall investment that BU is making in the what we call our AI and portfolio. And so, we're really I'm really proud of the fact that Boston University across all colleges are investing in these AI programs because they know that there's a need. And so, the lower cost is due to that. It's due to the fact that, BU has put so much effort into, well, how do we help computer scientists? How do we help people that are in public health? How do we help people that are thinking about this through engineering? And so the lower cost is more reflective of kind of the investment the university has made, which is, like I said, very exciting. Um, so why choose B Wheelock? Those beautiful flowers, those alone are, if you're around campus, it is gorgeous. Um, our approach is human-centered learning, so AI that enhances learning, not replaces it. The faculty are absolutely incredible. And so not only will you get to, do, I think some of the negatives of the online course I took when I did my master's, it was very much like I had to go on and do the worksheets. And if you've ever had an online course, the whole like, read and respond in the discussion board and then post it to your colleagues, like that gets old fast. And so really having something that is actionable that you can use, that's flexible, that's actually designed for working professionals worldwide. So you'll hear not just from the course itself, but also from your cohort, your classmates. What's working in Texas? What's working in Washington State? What's California doing compared to what's happening in New York City? And so you'll have access to all of these different networks. All coursework connects theory to practice. We have the incredible AI and Education Institute, which is really focused on thinking about AI through the lens of research and what evidence is out there, as well as the eval program. And then the biggest thing to me is like how important your professional network is, to be able to connect with folks, to be able to know these experts through policy and through the different amazing centers that we have, all of those elements.